anyone is like watching the video version instead of the audio version, they're probably like, what the fuck happened? This is like a really weird way to just like coerce you to coming over to my house. It's like, hey, you wanna come hang out, buddy?
Sorry, the studio's under renovation. You're gonna have to come to my house. Sorry.
Yeah, hey, and there's like a couple gates you have to get past. There's like a key code. Like, it's fine. Here's my, it's just.
Oh yeah, I just moved. You don't mind unpacking stuff, do you?
Do you have a truck? It's one of the first times I actually talked to you. I was like in an IKEA parking lot, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you want to do a podcast? Also, are you in Burbank? Because I'm stranded at IKEA, so I feel like moving is just a thing." And dude, I waited almost an hour at IKEA because
Really?
I tried to get a desk
Okay.
that I thought was gonna fit in my sedan. And I measured it, and I'm like, this is going to work. It's going to be tight, but it's going to work. Spoiler, it didn't work at all. So I needed someone with a bigger car to come save me because I bought it 2 minutes before IKEA closed. So there was no going back and being like, hey, I'm a fucking idiot. Can you, like, return? Can I pick this up tomorrow? I was just stranded in the parking lot with sad IKEA people.
So when I was a very poor joint DOTA worker, I got my new apartment at some point in time, like 2 months into working there. I got my new apartment, and I went to IKEA and bought a bunch of stuff, mostly desk stuff. And I did not have a car, obviously, and I did not speak German. So, and I went there all by myself because I didn't really have any other friends there to be able to help me out. So I went there all by myself, bought everything. Somehow, and it was like, IKEA was like 5 minutes to closing by the time I actually, got to the cashier and everything.
Oh, no.
I go to like the delivery area, and I somehow managed to put together with Google Translate ordering or actually I couldn't. They told me that there was no more left for the rest of the day. So I just had a bunch of very heavy IKEA stuff that obviously I couldn't fit onto a bus. So I go outside, and they have the third party drivers and stuff. And
I don't think that's a thing here.
yeah, so that was a thing there. And then I had to Google Translate my way into getting one of those guys. And those guys told me that I wouldn't be able to go with them, but they would be able to take my stuff. And I was just like, oh God, am I getting scammed?
It sounds like a way how you lost your desk.
Yeah, I was just like, oh man, like it was so much stuff too. It was so it was like 4 or 5 different like very large pieces. I needed some sort of like sleeping device. It was a couch / it was a futon. I could actually
one of the Mom Alex Bacazza's
desk, chair, etc. And fortunately, the guy was super nice, and it was against company policy, but he let me join him in the truck. Didn't speak a lick of English the entire conversation that we were having back and forth, trying to arrange how much money it was and where I was going and all that stuff. And he finally dropped me off at my apartment. It was about like 7:30 p.m. by the time we got to my apartment, and then I had to lug all of that by myself up 5 flights of stairs because my apartment didn't have an elevator either.
Wow.
It was that was a hellish day.
So you also have IKEA PTSD?
Yeah, definitely.
It's such a nice store, though. It's always so clean. How do they keep it so clean?
It is.
When you were in Germany, did people just assume you spoke German?
Yes, all the time.
So you'd be like, well, what's your go-to, like, I'm sorry, I don't speak German? Like, did you learn that much?
Yeah, sprechen kein Deutsch.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just imagine people.
That's like a very basic me no speak German. That's basically what it comes down to.
That's like me being like, yo no hablo, estupido americano. That's what I was doing in Mexico recently, and like at least they kind of knew. Because they're like, man, that guy's really white. But
yeah, Blitz had a little bit easier because, obviously he's Asian, so they take like a little bit more like, oh, maybe you don't actually speak German. But with me, it was like,
but you could be
you're
like
white,
straight,
of
yeah.
course you speak German. A lot of them got really angry at me that I didn't speak German because I was in a more older, conservative neighborhood that was outside I was in an area that it was technically in the city of Berlin, but every Berliner that I ever spoke to said that's not part of Berlin. They said it's the retirement community of Berlin. It's so divorced from the center, the relative like western center of the city, that it's an hour by really good public transportation to be able to get to that area. Getting to the other side is like 2 hours. Honestly, everything about living in that area sucked.
Did you ever drive on the Autobahn? Because I have like a fantasy of doing that.
No, I didn't.
I just want to. I think I'm doing a Europe trip next year, and I don't know if I'm going to be in Germany, but I'm like, if I'm there, how do I rent a car and how do I drive 300 miles per hour? Because I assume that's just what happens, right?
So far, my experience with California isn't like the Autobahn just the highway. It seems like nobody like pays attention at all to the speed limit.
Is it different in Washington?
Getting pulled over anyway.
Almost no one gets pulled over. You learn where, this is really interesting Los Angeles talk. You learn where the cops are on what certain parts of the freeway. So when I'm driving, I know when to hit cruise control at 70.
Okay.
And even if you get a ticket for going like even 73, 74, that'd be rare. You're probably safe most of the time if you put your cruise control on 75. And 65 is the speed limit for the highway, so you're fine. Do people not drive like that in Washington?
People are, first of all, like, speed traps are not that consistent. They're all over the place. And on top of that, people just don't drive as aggressively. Like my mom got here like a good 2 months. She visited 3 or 4 months after I moved here.
Okay.
And immediately she was like, "You drive so aggressively now." And I'm a relatively safe driver. I don't like speed super fast. I don't cut people off or anything like that. I'm pretty polite in that regard. And she's like, "You drive so aggressively now. What's wrong?" And I was like, "It's LA. You just got to adapt."
Yeah, you've been corrupted. I hear both sides of the coin. It's either like, "Oh man, it's so aggressive here," or like, "Oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be." Or like, "Oh, you guys joke about traffic so much. It's not that bad."
The traffic isn't as bad as I actually thought it was.
Yeah.
People do drive really aggressively.
I guess you just get used to it. I know nothing different. I just know how to live. It's all normal to me. I'm a lifer.
Is this the start of our podcast, by the way?
Oh, fuck.
This isn't about Dota anymore.
At what point do people start to care about us more than Dota? Because I'm almost certain. I'm almost certain it's not by episode 3. There's people who are like, "What happened to the nice-looking studio? Like, why are you guys eating cookies? And why are you not talking about Dota? I thought I signed up for a Dota podcast."
Yeah, people are going to be real disappointed.
I got notes on the last one, or from the people who are helping us make this, and they're like, "Yeah, maybe like a short intro to like, get people into it and be like, yeah, Dota." So I'm sorry because that was not it. I clearly did not take the production notes, so I could edit this. I'm probably not going to.
Fans who are in Los Angeles, they are completely enthralled.
The thing about Los Angeles, people in Los Angeles love Los Angeles humor. But out of the Dota base, I mean, we're getting our first event ever here.
Yeah.
And most of the Dota people don't live in the United States, let alone Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So we are hitting the smallest of demographics. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Sideful Podcast.
And it's not like we were casting a very wide net before with the amount of people listening to our podcast.
It could.
So there's like one dude who's like, "Hell yeah."
I see those people on Twitter.
He's a Dodgers fan, he's sitting there with his blue cap on.
He's like, "Man, I got Rams tickets, man. We're going to go to the Lakers game, and when I'm on the Metro, which doesn't really exist in Los Angeles, I'm going to listen to the Sidepole podcast. I love Dota. I can't wait to go to the BTS Minor. Woo." But yeah, we kind of aren't a podcast about traffic or IKEA or Los Angeles. We're just two silly dudes who talk about Dota. My name's Leafeator or Joey. I kind of like human names. Your name's,
I go by Cap.
You go by Cap.
Honestly, nobody can call me Austin at this point.
No one can?
No, it's too weird.
I still struggle. Like, every time I want to address you, I'm like, which one do I want to say? Because by and large,
not fucking say it.
By and large, I try and address everyone else, even people I don't know as well as you, by like their human names.
Yep.
But I feel like because Cap is already a nickname
Yes.
and it's short.
Yes.
Going to Austin just balloons it more than I want to.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happens. Everyone just calls me Cap now. I've accepted that. I never had a nickname as a kid, so I'm cool with just being Cap at this point. It's just weird when people call me Austin now, because it's, that's what my mother calls me. And for the last 7 years of my life, in my job, everyone has called me Cap.
Most of your friends, right? They're
Yeah,
just
when a fan sees me at an event and calls me Austin, I'm just
like take it out of the
it honestly
environment.
weirds me out a little bit.
I loathe Joseph.
Oh, your real name is Joseph?
My real name is Joseph. And it's never been that. Like, the only person who can call me Joseph is my grandmother or my mom when I did something very bad. But everyone else, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, please. I don't even like Joe that much.
So when I go back through and I see the horrible editing job, I'll know. Message you on Discord,
Joseph, what did you do?
What did you do?
Like, please stop talking to me. I don't like that. Yeah, it's gross. We did the thing again where we stopped talking about Dota. It's gonna be we're gonna get there.
It's post TI time.
It's post TI time, but it's also like pre the season starting, and there's so much stuff happening.
Yeah,
Which I guess is why we're here. Right?
we so when we left the last podcast, there was obviously a lot of rumored rosters out there. I couldn't really speak to most of them. Fortunately, they are almost all have been officially announced now, so we can actually talk about all the upcoming rosters and stuff, which I think is probably what people are most interested in.
It's been
Like part of the year, right?
Yeah, but before we even get there, why does this happen every year? How come we don't see teams that just stick together or organizations that stick together? It does happen, but it seems like everyone is waiting for TI to finish because all of these players, so many of them just swap rosters. They form new teams, they have new organizations. Sometimes they create their own organizations, and it's exciting because the Dota scene, for better or worse, kind of thrives on drama.
Yeah.
And this period of time definitely elevates that there's a lot of drama going on. So there's a lot of exciting things to talk about. But I get curious why that happens in the first place. Isn't it just like, hey, you got a good team, let's just stick together?
I think one of the biggest things is that unlike most other esports, you actually have a very concrete goal to the end of your year, right? Which is TI, and winning that TI or placing very highly in that TI is monetarily everything to you, right? And it's everything to you as a player, right? It's all your ambitions and dreams are all built up into this one goal. So in that regard, when TI it has so much pressure on it. It is so important to all of these players. Like other esports, it's like, oh, their salary is going to mean a lot. Or, it's like, CSGO, for example. We don't have like a world championship. We just have like big majors that come and go, right? So, there's never like that one ultimate goal that you see. So the way Dota players see it is that if you don't do well at TI, then the year is a failure, right? The entire year that you spent working super hard to get where you got to be, just like if I didn't get invited to TI, that year is a disaster. No matter how many events I worked, that year is just there's a black X on 2019.
Personally, for your bottom line in your checkbook, for like so many reasons.
Yeah, so for every single reason, right? So for these players, it's going to be the exact same kind of pressure, only amplified. So when that doesn't happen, on top of that, TI being such like that big pressure cooker, right? And people like snapping at each other, like there are just relationships that get broken at TI and you won't be able to fix them. I think that the best example of like why this happens would be the Virtus Pro roster. There is no coming back, right? I said that like last time, maybe that VP roster lost one too many times. That's exactly what happened, right? In fact, that VP roster had to change captains The previous year, because they didn't do well at the previous TI, that was the only way they could salvage their 5-man lineup was changing captains, because something has to change if you don't do well at TI, right? So if everybody has that same feeling, and most of the players, most of the teams are going to walk away from TI looking at it as the year being a failure, then you're just going to have crazy amount of shuffling going on after every single TI. The only team that is really safe is usually the team that wins TI.
Yeah. And it feels like it's almost become normalized in like both Dota and even kind of broader esports culture where, hey, like these are team games. So it's very easy to be like, oh, maybe I can do better if I play with other people. Maybe I can do better if I play with another coach. Maybe I can do better if I move to a different region. Yeah. Like there's a lot of different ways to kind of mentally adjust and justify your loss or what you can do differently. It's very easy to deflect onto a different teammate or an organization too. So, you know, it's also, it feels like it's a coping mechanism. To be able to switch teams and change rosters. Because it's like, I mean, I wasn't the problem. I mean, I'm sure some players are like introspective like that, but you know, it's very easy to not be and just be like, he was the problem. Our offlaner fucking sucked. Let's get a new one.
Yeah, and I think Dota is also like one of those because it's so strategic. It has a very large depth when it comes to the strategy involved. That there is a lot of different ways to look at Dota. And people's idea of what Dota is, if you ever listen to the pro players like analyze a game, they can have vastly different ideas of who's doing what, is that good or bad, what heroes are good or bad, et cetera, right? And we do see a lot of different strategies work. So in that regard, if you're having all these issues, if your entire year is a failure, and on top of that, you feel like you and this other guy just don't see eye to eye on what Dota should be about, then it's a lot easier for you to just find somebody who you think does have similar ideas. Or even just as simple as like, you guys have one too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Like one too many communicators, one too many captains, or maybe not enough captains, not enough voices.
Or even if you strip away all the game aspects, sometimes spending a whole year with 5 people, you just might not like all the people you're spending a full year with.
Yeah.
That, I mean, like, how many people have been in like a work environment where you just like really don't like a coworker, but you work with them for a long time and you kind of like, it's a means to an end and it's not the worst thing in the world. But if you had the chance to just be like, I'm going to take my editor and just replace him, or I'm gonna take my fry cook and just replace him, or I don't know why the only 2 jobs that exist in my head is either fast food or TV production, but like, I guess
that's
whatever.
Your life.
So you know, it could just be as simple as the personal relationship beyond the Dota one. Like, I can't spend time with this person because a lot of times these teams just live with each other.
Yeah.
That's living with 4 other people and a coach, 5 other people. Oof.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys are not, let's say that they haven't adapted like a lot of the social skills that you pick up in like college, you know, like in frats, or, you know, like you're still learning some of those life skills. And so being with 4 other dudes who are also trying to learn those life skills, or maybe you're one of the older players who has to like teach somebody how to like do their laundry or something like that. You know, it's you live with each other at a boot camp, then you go and you're rooming with one of them at an event. You know, it just doesn't stop.
You said that in such a nice political way, and I'm happy that you danced around it, because if you had asked me to say that same thing, it would have been much more crude.
I mean, like maybe like, you know, just being in a team room and that one guy just always smells like BO, you know, after a year, you're like, I can't go back. I can't go back to that prison anymore. I can't be locked in a room with that guy anymore.
I think it's not a secret that that some professional esports players haven't developed as humans.
Yeah, because when your entire success as a person can just be found through like funneling all your efforts into one, like your job, which is also your hobby. So everything just comes into one little small little area of life, you're only focused on Dota, and that's where all your efforts go into, then you're not able to branch yourself out as well.
You don't know how to like fix a toilet or what
Yeah.
is that an important life skill? Change your oil. What else? Do your laundry. That was a good one. I should have stuck with do your laundry.
Do your laundry.
Wash the dishes. Shower.
Shower.
I hate that I said that because I really, I've been to a lot of events and the whole like gamers don't shower is one of my least favorite stigmas.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm sure there's multiple pro players who don't have great hygiene.
Nowadays, pro players, if anything, they're overdressing. Have you seen? I mean, these guys are making millions of dollars, so they're dropping like
you gotta buy the
thousands of
Yeezy
dollars
shorts
on Gucci, Gucci sandals and Yeezys.
It's the funniest thing ever when I see people walk out on the TI stage and they're wearing their Gucci flip flops or their Gucci watch and their their Armani necklace, and I'm like, who are you? You probably don't care about this, right? You probably would be just as happy.
Yeah.
I can respect some like nice kicks, or like someone who, they should spend less money on name brands and they should just like get their clothes fitted. What if, man? Why aren't teams taking their jerseys and just fitting their jerseys better? They'd look so fly. I guess it is kind of hard to look fly in most esports jerseys. I'm being very aggressive. We should.
They're not well designed for the most part.
They aren't. But hey, they got all the sponsors on them, and that's what's important, right?
Yep.
If someone wants to pay me to have a big monster logo on my chest, I'll walk around with it.
I'll tattoo that monster logo on my chest.
I don't know if
right amount of money.
I don't know if I mean, maybe a Red Bull one.
All right, there goes our monster sponsorship.
I'm sorry. Oh, I know the monster guy. Brian, please don't be mad. But to get a little more granular into like some of these team changes, which I'm interested in, there's obviously a lot. And we're not going to go over all them because that's a fool's errand and silly, and probably no one really wants to get too much into the nitty-gritty of like what they all are. But big headline changes, like things that would make the biggest Reddit threads or you'll see on Twitter. What is there one that sticks out in your mind? Because I have a list broken down by region.
Evil Geniuses is, I think, easily the roster that everybody wants to. Everybody asks me about the EG roster and what I think. I've heard plenty of people, both outside of the scene and inside of the scene, all kind of say the same thing about this roster as well. It's just a weird one, right? This is a roster that is going to remain mostly the same, except for they're going to break up the duo that they had for so long, which was Sumail and Arteezy. They're finally going to go separate ways.
Because Sumail is leaving the team.
Yeah, they are keeping Arteezy, and they're going to pick up Abed, a Southeast Asian really good mid player who has played in plenty of NA teams before. And then they're going to pick up probably the most interesting one, which is Ramses. Ramses he was the safe lane carry for Virtus Pro. So he is a CIS player, doesn't have like the greatest English. He could speak some okay.
Yeah, he has some, a little bit.
But he's always played in the CIS region.
He's very young.
He's moving into a 3 position. He's moving into the offline. So he's changing roles, changing regions, changing teams that he's been on for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, he's going to get like a real life shock too. Like he's going to be presumably moving out here.
Presumably, yeah.
Which could be exciting.
I mean, a lot of the EG, it seems like EG has their players kind of like, at least from last year, right? Like with all the European players, they were just kind of set up in Europe until it was time to move over to NA to hit a qualifier up, But so maybe
it's funny how that works.
May have this similar situation. I have no idea what his ambitions are in that regard, but that is easily the most interesting roster. Everybody, the general consensus, whether you are a Redditor or you are inside the scene, is this roster looks kind of clowny. And it doesn't look like one of those rosters that's just naturally going to work out. Maybe it will. Honestly, there's so many question marks about whether or not Ramses will be able to change roles, how the communication
Sometimes silly things work.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, OG is an example of that, right? Sometimes silly things you wouldn't expect to work.
Yeah.
It's interesting, EG, by getting rid of both Sumail and S4, got rid of their last 2 TI winners on the team.
Yeah.
So now they're like a group of people who don't have that accolade, even though the team will still carry that because as an organization they won. And yeah, Ramses is a real question mark. He was regarded as one of the best safe lane carry players, not just in CIS but in the world. I think if most people would make a top 5 list, for sure he'd be in there. I think if a lot of people made a top 3 list, he'd still be in there.
Yeah. I think he was very good. He was also the captain for Virtus Pro. He was the one who took over for solo this year, again, because they had to change a roster. There was a very interesting documentary recently out about VP.
I have to watch
If you are
that.
more interested in it, I highly recommend it. It includes a lot of their in-game communication, which you pretty much never get to see. And, you learn certain things, like the fact that Ramses, he's a captain for a reason. He makes a lot of, I think, what are probably smart calls, but he says them in just the most, like this is translating from Russian to English, but everyone kind of picked up on the fact that, boy, he is condescending. It is just not positive communication, right? Like, he's probably right about the stuff he's saying, but boy, it does not look like it's fun to be his teammate.
It's like having a bad manager at work,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, hey, like this person like has good knowledge, they have good advice, but they just don't know how to talk to people well, and you don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being in a team where, my captain is just being mean to me in the middle of a match. Like, I'm sure that there's probably also cultural elements to that.
Yeah.
Like, we're just soft American boys, right? Like, how can we accept such rude and vulgar language? But, now he is going to be playing in such a mixed personality team and such an international team that it'll be interesting to see if he carries that over with him.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for him to be able to reinvent himself in several ways, not just as a core, but also be able to learn from very experienced captain in Fly, who we haven't gotten like really good ideas of what Fly and how his communication style is, because he's a fairly like reserved guy. But what I imagine, especially working with Notel, who is like the most PMA captain of all time, he probably has a pretty similar idea.
I would assume so. Fly seems like he does a lot of yoga and meditation.
Yeah.
So I imagine that he comes in game with that Zen mindset too. I don't
Yeah.
imagine him yelling at people. Could be totally wrong.
That sort of quiet strength, both physically and I presume verbally.
He's also jacked.
Yeah, he's also
That guy. Wow.
And Ramses is very small, so I think this is an opportunity for Ramses to be able to maybe learn a little bit. I mean, when you are on the same roster for the last 3 years, I think it's a little bit hard for you to grow as a person when you're just kind of with the same people all the time. So it was probably hard for him to learn from Solo. That was something that Solo specifically said, is that he had hoped that Ramses would have listened to him more, and that didn't actually end up being the case. So
Also note that Ramses is young too, so
he's
it's
very
teaching, trying to make someone who is in their late teens into like a very mindful, zenful person isn't always like he's still like fucking going through puberty and shit. Like, I mean, his body is changing.
And that guy also said that he did not get a chance to socialize as much with people in his like formative years. So that was probably a learning experience just being on a team in the first place.
Yeah.
Ramses and no one were both very well known for being really BM players. Just really toxic players to be around, but they molded themselves into a team environment, and everybody grows. And I think I've heard from a lot of pro players how much they've grown being on different teams and learning how to communicate differently with different kinds of people.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a good experience. Some other NA highlights, as a bunch of NA boys here. Complexity dropped their roster, which is interesting to me, not because Complexity has like been, I guess they've kind of been a mainstay in Dota. They've never really been like a top echelon team, but they've been a consistent North American representation.
Yeah, and they're going to lose. I think the biggest name that they lost off of this roster was Z-Freak. For the first time, he's always been on Complexity.
Always.
And this will be an interesting. There's several players out there who have an opportunity to be able to just transform themselves into something else. Because Z-Freak was very highly regarded at one point in time. And then he stayed on these complexity rosters. And the complexity rosters were always tier 2, always, like maybe they'll make TI, but they definitely won't do very well if they do make it. And it was always looked at as, oh, Z-Freak is the best player on that team. But you stay on bad teams long enough, and your stock is going to go down, right? So now I don't think he has the same kind of stock that he used to when it comes to pull with teams and stuff. But maybe being on a new team and finding some success can skyrocket his stock again. And I think stock is the perfect way to be able to put it, because your reputation as a player really determines where you're going to end up on these, whether or not you're going to end up on these good teams. And if you end up on good teams, then you get good game knowledge from your good captains, and then you become a more valuable player. That's why I think whenever you look at really good teams that pick up a player and they immediately just don't find any success, you can tell that they were definitely a problem, right? Like, look at how many carry players like Secret. If you were on a team, if you were on Secret and then you immediately went down to a tier 2 and then a tier 3 team, like that just goes to show that it was your team and your captain maybe who was making you look good, and not necessarily you as a player.
Yeah, and Z-Freak, I think that he might be able to tick that stock back up. Like, he has the opportunity now to kind of remake a name for himself, which is cool. But Complexity as an organization, like they became backed by the Dallas Cowboys last year.
Yeah.
Like they're like a serious player in the esports sphere in general. So now we might not have that representation, that money, that name brand in Dota for the next year.
Yeah, it could be that I think a lot of these organizations, or at least I'm just imagining this, is that the start of any Dota season, if you really understand Dota, like I would not jump in on any roster at the start, right? Because you just don't know who's going to really succeed. And the important part of having, sponsoring a team at Dota is when they're going to TI, right? The infamous Mouse Sports, right? Who always came in just before TI to be able to pick up whatever team qualified. That's where you want your organization really represented. And so I don't really blame, maybe Complexity is going to take a little bit of time and wait to see what the field looks like in 3-4 months. But
yeah, that could be a good, nice break they can have. But speaking of teams that, just snipes one before TI, we saw Newbie do that with a North American team, and now Newbie is back to firmly being a Chinese team.
Yeah, there was that brief hope where it was like, maybe this Newbie roster is going to go good. They managed to end up in the upper bracket. No, immediately bottomed out. Back to backing Chinese teams.
I think my last question about North America teams and where people are ending up is that no one really knows what Sumail is doing.
Yeah.
Who is probably, if you were to name, who are the biggest North American stars in Dota? Yeah. You're probably going to say Sumail and Arteezy.
Yeah, and then having their split up, and obviously most of the teams seem to stake it out with Arteezy, which is surprising since Sumail is the TI winner, right? That says some things about it. Maybe it also says something about Sumail, that he just wants an entirely different future. A lot of the rumors going around is that he's going to be making a team with his brother in UR, who had a very good showing at TI. He looked like a great carry. So those... the Hassan brothers might actually end up forming a team together, and who knows, like NA, it could really be revitalized this year based off of EG kind of breaking up and some other potential things, like, for example, Ninjas of Pajamas and wherever they end up. Yeah.
The thing with 2 points on the Hassan brothers, I feel like if I were their parents, I'd want them on different teams. because you're spreading your bets out, right? Like for the last couple years, they both made TI independently.
Yep.
And almost certainly they will still make TI with whatever roster they want to put together, because NA looks silly right now. I think if you look on Wikipedia at this very point in time, there's like 3 official NA rosters.
Yeah.
But that must be like, oh wow, I hope they can do it together, because they're really putting all their eggs in one basket. It's also interesting. I mean, I don't have a brother, but I have a sister, And the thought of doing anything competitive with her in the same team probably feels more toxic than.
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, Yawar's the older brother, but his younger brother is the one who's been more successful in Dota. So I'm sure that's like maybe
Do
a
they
little
care
bit
about
of
that?
chip on the
Maybe?
block. Do they care about that? You know, it's as far as I understand, it seems like their family unit is pretty tight. And you know, like Samael's provided. People don't know this. Samael is like. He won TI. He bought his family his house. You know, he's been supporting his family monetarily heavily throughout his Dota career. So, you know, people like to give flack to Samael, but I think that's like a really respectable thing to use all this great money that you want and to be able to support everyone around you.
There's a reason why, you know, when Samael wins TI, and even up to this point, like it's a story that breaks out into mainstream media. Is like, hey, this is like a very modern version of the American dream.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you
Yeah.
move over to a new country, find success doing something, working really hard, and then, you know, benefit your family who made sacrifices for you because you ended up doing well.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to be able to talk about the rumored roster because it is so that rumored roster is Samael and Uwar, who Uwar is going to be looks like he's transitioning into offlane.
Okay.
So that's interesting. CC&C is their mid player, and then SVG as their captain, and MSS as their other support player. And I 100% honest, I legitimately don't know if this roster is official or not. But I will say that I've seen them playing a lot of pub games. I literally just got done playing a pub game with them.
How'd your games go today?
Just before this, and well, we won our game, so I fed, but you know they carried the hell out of me because those are really good players. That looks like honestly those names, every single one of those players is a potential tier 1 in their like each one of those players right now, besides Uar, who's playing in a new position, but right now is top 10 in their role, I think. People don't know this, but I think the information is maybe a little bit lacking, but SVG has been highly regarded as a great captain and drafter. There was a reason why he was captaining Evil Geniuses before. There was a reason why a lot of players wanted to play with him as well. And then everybody else, if you are familiar with North American Dota, you'll know those names and think like, wow, those guys are really good. So
I feel like I sleep on MSS a lot for no real reason.
yeah, it's fair. He had a little bit of a Z Freak situation where like he always looked the best in his team, but his team didn't necessarily do the best. So, you know.
That sounds like a team that would have a Jack at the helm too.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, this could be like the first year that North America has real competition in who's number 1, right? Because EG has been
a while.
very clearly the best NA team for a
while.
long time.
I'm excited. I'm excited for that competition, especially because of the way that we'll talk about in a little bit how they're changing qualifiers for all the events. Like that competition will be welcomed. To run through a couple other regions, couple other teams. We talked about earlier. VP did break up some of their roster. You know, Ramses went to EG. Pasha also left. So now they have like 3 core players.
Yep.
Pasha did go to Na'Vi, who dropped Blizzy.
Yep.
So those are probably the 2 CIS rosters that people are looking at right now of like, are these teams going to be good? Are these teams going to do well? Because for so long, VP was one of those teams that did stay together.
Yeah.
And now they're not.
That'll be really interesting because I think that Pasha is a bit of a question mark to me in how successful he'll be outside of a VP roster. And then also Solo returning to the helm and captaining the VP team. If you watch the VP documentary, again, highly recommend it. One thing that was said by their captain I thought was super insightful was that Arzik, their coach rather, said that he thinks that Solo betrayed himself in giving up the captain role to Ramses because they basically laid it out the fact that it was either for this last season, it was either they were going to lose Ramses or they were going to lose Solo as captain. There were only 2 options in that situation, and Solo chose to give up his captaining position to Ramses in order to keep him in the team, and obviously that team and some of the toxic atmosphere and stuff, like them breaking apart, maybe Solo kind of coming to realize like what he gave up and is going to return. He was a great captain before, so I
A
think
lot of people talk about Solo, being the CIS captain.
yeah.
So he's always held in high regard, especially in that scene, which I think the CIS scene really elevates certain people to higher standards. And Solo is just such an important person in that hemisphere.
Especially in a region that is well known for being relatively toxic, but also being similar to NA in that you just kind of swap the same like group of players over and over. You just play this game of musical chairs where you're swapping in and out and hoping something.
One of them will work, right?
Yeah, and they never really seem to work. At least when they do work, they don't work for very long. VP was always the one team that came through, and a lot of that has got to be the captaining of Solo.
In China,
Yep.
LGD staying the same,
Yeah.
which is cool. I think they're going to give it another swing. I believe they are changing their captain, or excuse me, their coach.
Yes.
Which is changing the coach always feels like a cop out for when you're not sure if you want to change the roster. You might not have got the results you want to, but maybe let's stay together. We can have a different coach.
Remember what LGD said in their at TI, right? Is that 343 was always the one to soak up a lot of the flame, right? Because he was the coach, he could be the bald old man that all of the Chinese fans would flame. And I think the one thing that really stuck to me this TI was like how much the community interaction with the Chinese players does matter compared to any of the other regions, right? It's just like the Chinese fans are a lot more passionate about it. They're a lot more prideful about their teams. The players, I think, are more incentivized to have more of a brand themselves, so they are naturally going to interact more with their community. So, like, what the community thinks of you does matter. So, in a way, 343, he was like that was the final.
It's like, well, okay.
He lay on the dagger moment where he's like, he had to take up all the flame for a lot of the year, and then in the end, he was going to be the reason they could stay the same for this next year.
The more that I think about that, the more that it does, seem like that happens all the time in like the NFL or the NBA or college football. It's like, hey, this team probably had potential. Why didn't they do well? It was the coach.
Yeah.
It was the coach. Let's get a new coach.
Yeah.
So it's really not that different than stuff that we take from other sports.
Yeah.
I almost said mainstream sports, but I hate saying that. SCCC left newbie,
Yeah.
which I'm only talking about because I still think he's very attractive.
True.
For EU, I think that's all three podcasts. I've said that now. I'm really just gonna slip into every one, and then one day we'll hang out together. EU, biggest EU news: Team Liquid is no longer Team Liquid.
Yeah.
When it got announced, it really kind of rocked the scene a little bit.
Yeah, that was the one brand that a lot of people could stick behind. Team Liquid is a pretty legendary esports brand by itself, but being able to win a TI elevates your brand even more in Dota. Then on top of that, having a roster that stays relatively the same for the last 3 years, that also says that is also going to build up a lot of the community behind you. Excuse me. So this the Team Liquid team leaving the org like that was quite surprising, and even more so surprising that Kuro is saying that he wants to be able to build his own brand, very similar to Puppy
Team Secret.
and Team Secret. Yep. So
yeah, it's I have a Team Liquid sticker on my car.
really,
I do. I have like a.
so how do you feel about it?
I mean, I'm a TL fan because I got into esports. First through Counter-Strike, but like
StarCraft?
seriously through StarCraft.
Yeah.
So Team Liquid was like just more than a team. It was like a place that we hung out.
Yeah.
I visit Liquipedia more than I visit Wikipedia. Sometimes when I want to go to Wikipedia, I accidentally type in Liquipedia. I think I even just said that wrong. Like I can't. They're just so meshed together in my brain. So it's sad that they don't have that consistency or that prestige of that roster. But Team Liquid still won an international. Team Liquid has the financial backing to probably buy another really good team. Or if they don't want to do that, if they don't want to just spend all the money, they might be able to pick up some fun, scrappy underdog team that might not win a bunch of events, might not always be placing top 4, but you can kind of get behind. and be excited about.
Yeah.
Like a team, say, which broke today, Alliance, who is no longer with Alliance in a similar situation. Even right after TI, they're like, hey guys, we're sticking together and we're Alliance. And then I think it was literally today where they're like, hey guys, we're not Alliance anymore.
Yeah.
This one hurts me.
That one I'm sure hurts a lot of people because a lot of people backed Alliance for so long. They watched them win TI3. So many people I've talked to like came into Dota at that time period and watched Alliance win, became fans, wanted to support them. Alliance was total dog shit for so many years, and then finally they get a roster that actually looks pretty decent and has some really personable, charismatic people on it too. And you're like, great.
I fell in love with them at TI.
Yeah.
I fell in love with them. I'm like, I want to follow this team. I am now an Alliance fan. These players are fun. And then I'm like, well, the team's sticking together, so I guess I can still do this. But it feels dirty. And there's definitely like an argument going on in the community actively right now of like, I guess you can kind of compare it to employer loyalty. Like, Alliance invested a lot of time and resources and love into these 5 players over 2 years.
Yeah.
And then most people don't know the full story. I have no idea what the real story is. Was there a reason why they wanted to leave? I'm not asking because you might know more than I do. But like,
can I get on my soapbox here real quick? Because
yeah,
I love the fact that you did point out the fact that we don't know how much. I don't know why they left. I don't typically ask the players that I'm friends with these sort of things because I don't think it does any good to really know.
It's awkward.
So I don't know. That being said, the amount of people who are like, oh man, this just is really dirty from the Alliance players to leave this brand that has supported them for so long. First of all, we have no idea any of the information. What if they just weren't getting a salary?
Yeah.
What if LOTA punched one of them in the face? What if he punched Insania after he misclicked on Gyrocopter? You have no idea like what their situation is with that team. So like I don't know why everybody thinks that like everyone seems so set that there should be a reason why this team sticks with Alliance, sticks with the org, and they're just not staying with them because they just want more money or something like that. Like that doesn't strike to me the kind of people that they are. I'm not saying Alliance has done anything bad. I'm just saying that I don't know why everybody's jumping to the assumption that the players are wronging the organization.
It's probably the path of least resistance. It's probably the quickest conclusion people can come to in their brain of like, they should be loyal because of what happened. But like, we don't know. That's the whole point, right? Like we really don't know. They could be in like not a great work environment. Maybe
Alliance just doesn't have the money to like be able to pay them, a decent salary for what is a TI winning team.
Maybe someone offered them a lot of money and they couldn't say no to it. And maybe LOTA was like, hey guys, I genuinely care about you. You should take that money.
Yeah.
All of these are possible.
Those are all entire possibilities. I'm just not sure why everybody's just like immediately jumps on these players are garbage sort of bandwagon. But
also like if you don't,
I hate stuff like that, man. Nobody knows. So why is everyone trying to jump to conclusions about this? But that being said, who knows? Maybe that is going to be the roster that Team Liquid picks up. There's only so many rosters that aren't accounted for on an org, and that's obviously one of the very clear European ones.
It could be the Sumail team.
It could be the Sumail team.
Those are probably two of the. If you had to ask me what the 2 biggest candidates for Team Liquid team are, it's either Sumail and UR's team or what is Alliance right now. Because in my head, if I had to theory craft, I think that Team Liquid might have made an offer that they couldn't turn down.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And for a team that didn't make a lot of money at TI because they bottomed out in the
guaranteed income.
Guaranteed income probably means a lot.
Yeah.
These guys, they're not rolling in the dough like any of the teams that managed to place top 8 at a previous TI. So,
well, I'm sure we'll find out. I'm sure some people might have some remorse about things they said on the internet. I'm sure more people will still just be mad at them and never forgive them, which is sad.
Yeah, that is sad. Because again, those guys, I think they're a great roster. That'll be the one roster. You know, like people accuse me of bias. I don't really care that much because honestly, I just don't care who wins. They're all millionaires. You think I give a crap if EG wins or Liquid wins? They're both millionaires. They're both gonna be fine for the rest of their lives. I don't care. But Alliance is the one team that roster is the one team that I will now be very biased for, and I don't really care because what I saw at TI was such a special moment.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about that last podcast. That was such a special moment of being able to forgive and forget a very human error and look past it and support each other. I honestly, how many other teams could have gone through that at TI and still keep the same roster? I don't think any other team could do that.
No.
Every other team has enough prior success, enough ego, enough like already bad tensions that they would break apart the moment something like that happens. So I think that's just an incredible story, and I'm going to support them for the rest of this year.
I like them too. I'm going to keep beating that drum. Yeah. I'm going to be like, I don't know what to call them now. The Insania stack?
The Insania stack.
Maybe.
Yeah.
TBD. One final note on roster shuffles for what we actually know. Fittingly, OG, who won TI back-to-back. We don't really know what they're doing. Anna says he's taking a break for an indefinite amount of time. Thompson says he's taking a break for, I don't know, he's trying to figure something out. No-Tail might just want to stop playing Dota and go save the environment, which isn't a joke. That's a thing that he actually said.
Wants to be, what was it? Nature's warrior or something like that. That was the quote. Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that No-Tail wants to be able to use his position of fame, also his position in money. He obviously has won a lot of money to be able to make the world better in some way. That is so cool to me because most of the time, from what I hear from these players, is they're not like spending the money in like really stupid ways. But they do just generally keep quiet, support, the people around them. I don't know if anybody else besides No-Tail who's like actively trying to give back to the world, I guess. In No-Tail's, I was going to say the community, but No-Tail's got bigger ambitions than that.
I mean, he's even doing that too because didn't he buy a hero in Midas mode?
Yeah, he supported the Midas mode tournament.
He might have been the only player who did that. I don't really know for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
We could actually, if we switch gears for a second, what the fuck is Midas mode?
It's a Herculean effort put on by a man called Sir Action Slacks to make some sort of unique and original content in Dota 2 via a very weird-ass tournament.
That's a good way to sum it up.
That is very different than what Dota is, but I have to say, I admire Slacks a lot for all the work that he has put into doing this, the reasons behind him doing it, and love that man to death. I think it's super cool what he's doing, but I'm not going to watch a single minute of Midas mode. I just could not care less about that tournament. Everybody asked me, you going to watch Midas mode? Like, no, not at all.
I think you're just outing yourself as like a Dota purist.
My job is watching Dota. My hobby is playing Dota. The last thing I'm going to do is watch more Dota that does not, very clearly does not impact my job.
Well, that's actually interesting because when I was thinking about Midas mode, it is probably the one time a year right now that we have something that's not like a DPC event that's kind of a little bit sillier, that is a breath of fresh air, that's different. Yeah. And my question is, who is the demographic for that tournament? Is it the people who are so into Dota that they appreciate the fact that it is different and silly, but like yourself, maybe you can be so into Dota that like you're on the other side of that valley, that like it's not pure enough? Or is it for people who aren't that into Dota but can appreciate that it's wacky and different, and you don't have to be like some kind of Dota meta high level player purist to just like watch a silly thing happen? I don't know who it's for.
I think for me, it's very solidly in the camp that people just really love Dota. They just really appreciate. They watch, all the tournaments and stuff, and they love Dota and the entire community around it. So they love the talent that are there at Midas Mode. They love, the players that they're going to be watching. They love just being able to watch Dota in general. I think it hits directly into what is, I think, most of the demographic for people who are watching tournaments anyway, which is people who don't necessarily play a whole lot of Dota, but just really enjoy it as a spectator sport. Everybody tells me that nowadays. They used to play Dota, they don't anymore. They can't keep up, but they do love watching it.
I don't think I've played in 2 months.
Hits that
3 months.
Hits that spot real hard. A lot of I don't judge anybody for doing that because my job is keeping up to date with Dota, so I have the luxury of keeping up and playing Dota nonstop. Honestly, I probably would still play Dota. I know, because somebody who I have a strong affinity with when it comes to playing Dota is Merlini. He quit this job to take a real person job and deal real person things, but he still plays tons of Dota. So I'm pretty sure I would still play Dota, but I totally understand people who have real life stuff and just, gotta move on and only watch Dota. I totally get that.
When's the last time you went 2 weeks without playing Dota?
2 weeks without playing Dota? Oh, all the time. But that's when I'm at tournaments watching Dota.
Fair.
If I'm home, never. Pretty much never.
Years.
It just won't happen. I love playing Dota, man. That game has me hooked for life. It's not going anywhere for me.
Would you judge me if I told you that the most Dota I've played in the last year have all been turbo games?
No. I don't judge that at all, because turbo games, that is you're still playing a little bit of Dota, and you're doing it in the way that you have the most fun. And I totally get that. I'm a competitive person, so I need to play.
I want to be that person.
Queue matchmaking. I thought the party queue would actually change the way I played Dota. It didn't. I'm just I want to go back to solo queue because that's the kind of person I am. I'm just a competitive asshole who just needs to be able to assert my dominance over somebody else in the game of Defense of the Ancients.
I think for me, it's become just like a pure time constraint thing. And I talked to a lot of other people who play Turbo. It seems like there's two big Turbo crowds, which in Turbo, the game mode is where everything is sped up. It's like games take about half as long.
Yeah.
It's either the people who are playing it are people who want to play Dota but don't have the time to play Dota, or people who want a more carefree experience. You can probably have a couple drinks and play Turbo, and still have a fun time and not get mad at yourself for having a silly Dota game.
Yeah. And everyone's going to take it a lot less seriously. You can have more fun with the people you're playing with and the people you're playing against. I mean, honestly, what kind of asshole gets mad at people?
Some people. I can assure you some people.
Turbo.
There are people that exist.
What kind of...
Some people exist.
Shout out to Knoxville, who recently tweeted something about throwing Turbo games off of somebody not buying wards or whatever. I'm just like, what? You're playing Turbo. Who the hell cares?
Man, I need to save this 15 minutes of my life right now and really punish this person. Ugh, man. If we want to talk about Midas Mode, I feel like it's a disservice to not round out by talking about how we're almost at the first minor. It seems like TI just ended. Because it did.
Yeah.
And now we're getting close to the first minor. You shaved, you cleaned up a little bit. So that means you must be getting ready to go back to work, right?
Yeah, my DOTA2 TI catharsis is it had to be stripped away. I got a haircut. I trimmed my beard. I am getting back into Midas Mode. I'm ignoring entirely because I'm nope, I'm still on vacation. I'm still not studying Dota. But soon the qualifiers are going to be coming in. Soon, arguably, what is probably going to be the best minor of the season is coming up as well. It is the BTS minor. It's the summit. the summits are always fantastic events. So that'll be a great way to kick off the season.
It's cool because first off, it's cool that they moved the qualifier dates from Midas mode because people were upset about it.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me, I would have been like, they're not going to change the dates. I was so happy that they did though, because it felt like a thing. It felt like an evolution of Valve to just like not take a hard line on something and be like, hold on, wait a second, this is probably better for everyone and we can do it.
And they're communicating more. There's a Reddit post from Valve. The
Right
last
now.
time that happened was when Gabe fired James Toogood.
I should wear my free James shirt on the next show. It's somewhere in a closet. That's a whole nother conversation that we should definitely save for later. But they changed the dates for the minor.
Yep.
It's cool that the summit is becoming a minor. They found a way to work it into the system. Valve approved it to be like a real DPC event.
Yep.
It feels like it being a minor fits the proper vibe. It's an event for, I think, the first time that's open to the public in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Which makes me feel conflicted because I know it's very limited, and I kind of want to ask someone to just like, hey, I can come, right? But
We'll make it happen.
I know if I want to go there, I'm gonna like want to like work and help and not just like sit down, which is a problem because I don't know. This is oddly personal. I like don't know how to be around camera equipment and like not do something.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey guys, we can just. Oh, I'm really sorry. I don't work. Like, let me just enjoy Dota. I don't think I'd enjoy it. I'd probably want to be there and working.
No, I totally feel that. I don't think I would go to a Dota event if I wasn't working it because I would just I just don't know how to sit there and watch Dota. I would just be a little bit sad that I'm not like working the event, you know?
Yeah, and I've never like properly worked a Dota event before. I've worked other esports events, but and who the fuck am I to go in and be like, hey Dakota, we really, that shot, it's not good. Like I'm never gonna do that. That's horrible. But if I was there, I'd want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm conflicted personally if I want to go, but regardless, it's really cool. They're doing the minor. They have very limited tickets, which probably makes sense because even though Los Angeles is Los Angeles, it is a smaller esports market traditionally. It's really hard to travel around the city. You have to like drive places. People work a lot. Like it's not really a destination city.
No.
So I'm interested to see what the turnout for tickets are. They will get rid of all their tickets because they have a small amount. But like, I would be curious in a world where they didn't have to limit the tickets, how many people would come?
Yeah. I like, part of me says like a lot of people would be interested. And part of me says that like, there's just not going to be a whole lot of people interested. The part that says there's not is that the U.S. is massive and the market for Dota in the U.S. is very small. So there's just not a lot of people who are able to get to Dota events. But then we also haven't had an NA event in a very long time. So I know there's a lot of antsy people who are like,
it's been,
really want to try.
Yes, since TI9.
Yeah.
But even that was like Canada. Before that, TI7 was the last one in the United States. The Boston Major filled all their seats.
They did.
But that was still kind of a smaller venue, and it's much easier to travel if you're like around the East Coast than it is the West Coast.
Yeah.
If you're not in LA, you are taking a plane to get here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely hard. And it's not like, oh, I can justify a week-long TI vacation because it's TI. It's like, oh, it's a minor.
Yeah. So
I'm really interested to see how that unfolds. I'm also interested to see just how this new format works for majors and minors. This is me putting a ball in a tee that I don't know if you can swing at, but do you know how they work?
Do I know how the
new qualification system works? Because I tried to brush up on it before we did this because I'm like, I should sound knowledgeable. And it's complicated.
All right, hit me up with it. Because honestly, like when it comes to tournament formats and qualifying formats, I pretty much almost never know what the setup is because I just don't really care that much.
I envy your ability to just be like, hey man, it's chill, I got it.
Like I'm just.
But it's
here to
also not
talk
your
about
job. Like
Dota.
you
I
show
don't
up, you're
care
supposed to talk about Dota.
Yeah, like if I'll know whether or not a team is going to be eliminated or whether or not this match matters in some way. But that's the most of it, you know.
Yeah, it's I guess the top line news for someone who is curious is that no longer this year. Last year we had qualifiers for the minor and qualifiers for the major.
Yeah.
Now they're rolling that into just one qualifying event for both.
Yep.
Each region will still have their own qualifier. It's 10 teams per region. And there's 3 different stages.
Yes.
Which I don't even want to like get into it too much because it gets really messy really quick. There's stage 1, there's 2 groups of 5 teams, they play round robin, and then some teams go to phase 2, some teams get eliminated. And then if you win in phase 2, you get to go to the major, but if you lose in phase 2, you go to phase 3, and then if you get in phase 3, you can maybe go to the minor. It's a lot.
And like and how many teams like go to phase 2 or phase 3 is different based off of how many slots that region gets.
Yep.
Like I immediately was just like I was checked out. I was just like, okay, whatever.
The Liquipedia page that tries to explain it, which I think is a little bit better than the Valve official page that tries to explain it, is so many lines of text. And I'm like, eventually I'm gonna understand this. And I'm someone who appreciates tournament formats. Like I think it's cool to do different things and like to have creative solutions to figure out who the best teams are. But this is a little convoluted.
The only part that I cared about was because there's only one qualifier and it's for major and a minor, and the major and minor are always different tournament organizers. I wondered how that was gonna work. Then basically just share it.
Do we know?
I do know, and that is that the minor controls the second or third phase, whatever the phase is for making the tournament, right? So the major tournament operator works the first 2 phases. Basically, they're the ones who makes it to the major.
So that would be the open qualifier.
Yeah.
And then the first group stage.
I assume so. And then the part that determines who actually qualifies for the major. And then when you get into the third phase for the minor part, that's when the minor tournament organizer comes in. The only reason I was interested in is I've just been hoping that there's no financial reason to ever do this, but I've just been hoping that tournament organizers would put more effort into creating a good qualifying coverage and creating a storyline that actually starts from the open qualifiers and makes it into their tournament. There's no reason why any tournament organizer should do that financially. It's just it just doesn't pay the bills. You should honestly just pay some guy $10 an hour to cover the major and cast all the games, and that's all you should do from a financial perspective. But I've just been hoping we've put more effort into that.
Maybe we'll get more effort because there's less work to do by only having one event. Maybe you can put it in a package of hey, they can brand the qualifiers in a different way. But even that seems messy if there's 2 different people controlling it.
Yeah,
it might be cool to track stories through, all the different qualifiers since they seem to I guess they've always mattered, but if they feel more important now because there's less of them. So to see teams progressing, I'm sure there might be a cool way to do a show about that, even if it was a different type of a thing. Maybe you can do a recap or have some fun with the whiteboard. But it goes back to the problem of not everyone cares about tier 2 Dota, for lack of a better word.
Oh, let's get into that conversation.
I don't know yet. We'll be here very late if we do that.
Let's just say the community talks a lot of talk about supporting the tier 2 and tier 3 scene, but as a caster who once covered a lot of tier 2, tier 3 games, nobody cares. Nobody cares about watching those games. They just don't. So people in Dota naturally just care about the best. And that's just the way it is. And, you want to be able to support the tier 2, tier 3 scene, but there's just not numbers there, which is why I'm saying financially it doesn't make any sense for any tournament organizer to put more effort into qualifiers than they currently do.
I get interested in the people who do support those tier 3 scenes, because if you're supporting a tier 3 Dota, I'm assuming you're supporting tier 3 all the way up to the TI Grand Finals. You're watching all of it.
Yeah.
So then I just have questions of, what your life is like.
Time do you have to be able to watch Dota and
Yeah,
stuff?
because I mean, I would watch more Dota if I had the time to watch more Dota, which means that maybe I'd watch more other Dota. But like, as someone in my position, the reason why I don't invest in tier 2, tier 3, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is because like it comes down to a time investment.
Yep.
You can watch the final day of a tournament of a major and be like, man, I'm getting what might be the best Dota. Or you might wait until the end of a tournament and like look at a Reddit thread and be, oh, hey, these are the best games. Maybe I'll go back and just like watch good games of Dota.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to have the time to spend to watch that much, even if it's just like on the background while you're doing this stuff, send us a message. I want to know about your life.
Believe me.
After I just made fun of you.
I've casted so many games. I've casted Southeast Asian finals between Rave and some other team that went to this crazy base race where literally there were 2 people and Jo, and the 2 supports were literally force-staffing Jo through the throne as he was hitting it, as the enemy team tried to chase Jo around the throne to stop him. I casted this epic game that stuck with me. Oh, this was like 5 years ago, and I still remember this one. And I remember, what an insane game. People are going to be popping off about this. I go to Reddit, nothing. There wasn't even a game thread up about the Southeast Asian qualifying finals. There wasn't even a game thread about it. Nobody cared. And Dota's just like, there's just too much Dota to watch. And if you're going to watch Dota, and Dota's a very complex game, and so only the best teams really look good. Mm-hmm. Dota's just one of those games where people just don't look good until they're like the best of the best.
That's why I was kind of worried when we first started doing the DPC stuff. Because I'm like, I feel like this is what started to hurt StarCraft. Is like we had too much of it.
Yeah.
It seems like it's kind of not a death blow, but it can be detrimental to some esports. You know,
Yeah.
A lot of people, if they want to critique Overwatch League, it's like there's too much of it. You know, you can't even really watch every team play every NFL game.
Yeah.
There's too much of it. Like we have to pick and choose our time, right? So to have so much Dota is both a blessing and a curse. And if you want to support Tier 2 Dota, it might be worth watching some more instead of just telling other people to spend money on it. Because they're businesses.
Yeah.
They're businesses. They don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, I don't know, e.g. buying an LCS team.
Believe me, I would love to be able to like cast a qualifier with like me, Grant, Kyle, Blitz, like BSJ, like just have like us on the couch and like cover a qualifier from start, and then take that idea and move it into the actual tournament itself. But nobody's going to pay for that because there's just not enough people watching it.
Yeah, the sponsors will be like, how many people are watching your show? Why do you want to pay you? How many tweets are you going to give us?
Yeah.
It's a vicious business. We got dark about it. We should be happy with the Dota season starting.
Yeah.
Why are we sad? I think we should just stop.
Stop before the doom and gloom. I mean, the TI season or the DPC season is coming up. It's a fun time. The first 3 months is a fun time because rosters are experimental. Look at the EG roster. You have no idea who's going to be good or who's going to be bad. Like, nobody really knows.
Team Beast Coast.
a patch is going to be coming up in like, a month, 2 months. Who the hell knows when the big patch is going to be coming, but it's going to be coming. The Dota landscape will change forever, and everyone's going to be scrambling to pick new stuff up. This time of the season, about a month, especially once the patch is about to hit, is one of my favorite times of the year because it's one of the few times that I feel like the knowledge of the best teams and knowledge of the worst teams, that there isn't that big gap, and everyone just kind of is on the same
They live in the middle.
playing field, and everyone just is trying to figure it out as fast as possible, and that's fun to me.
Well, we're getting really close, and until then, if you don't want to watch that, you can watch Midas Mode.
Yeah.
Thank you, Slacks. I appreciate you.
You should support that tournament, even if I won't. Do it. Open up a second. I do have it playing on my computer. I just don't watch it. I'm one more number in that viewing list, but I don't watch a single second of it. I'm supporting my homies, and you should open up a second one for me too. So
and similarly, you should download this podcast on different platforms or devices, or give it a YouTube view.
Inflate the numbers,
because we're lucky enough that there's people who are helping us do this, but I don't want to be too silly or too optimistic, but I think that we might be better than other people doing this. Maybe people might actually like this. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think we might be entertaining.
I think we're pretty funny.
I heard people who said that they actually liked listening to us, which you can do on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on wherever you get. There's too many things to list it. I should listen to how more other podcasts explain that you can listen to it anywhere. You just look up Sidepole Podcast. If you're listening, you can watch the video version on YouTube.
Damn.
It's youtube.com. Oh, fuck. Oh, no.
Oh,
God.
No.
Oh, no. I'm going to edit this.
I'm going. Podcast or something?
I wrote it down. I have a script. I can't even. Oh, hold on.
You definitely got to keep at least part of it.
I can't keep all that.
YouTube.com/ oh, fuck. Oh, no.
It's the Blink GG.
The Blink GG. Oh, yes.
Yeah, it'll be like a really weird smash cut. I'll be like, oh, yep, nope, they said nothing wrong. Oh, I can't reference getting up. YouTube.com/Blink.GG. Normally, it looks better than this. Before we started recording, my lights turned off. So we're very dark. Yeah. And this is a bad example to go to YouTube, but you can see it there. You can listen on YouTube. You can listen whatever you want to do with the podcast thing. There's probably other stuff I should plug. You can follow you on Twitter. It's like Dota Capitalist.
Yeah, sure. You can if you want.
You can if you want. You gotta
follow at Leafeator.
There's not. I'm the worst person on Twitter. It's bad. It's bad jokes. Maybe disagreeable political commentary and weird Dota takes.
He's the best social media to follow for catching this podcast the moment it gets released. He's the one who produces everything.
That's what you want to do. You should follow me so you can get this podcast. And I didn't.
And tell your friends about it.
Yeah, because if your friends like Dota, they might want to listen to this.
Yeah.
And if there's what other Dota podcasts are you listening to? I think Kyle and Sheaver did one. And oh, how boring, right? Or oh, hey guys, it's the Moonduck podcast. My name's Suns Fan, and I have a podcast.
No, that's Uriah and Trent. Oh, you're talking about the one that was Synderen. Synderen's whatever. He's a washed up pro player anyway. You don't want to listen to him.
I'm Zyori.
You want to listen to a washed up Reddit Max Red mod.
God, that's gonna be me one day. That already is me. I want to ask people to do the shameless thing of if you can rate us on the podcast thing or leave a comment somewhere. On the next episode, I'm just gonna pick one for you to do a funny reading of, which I didn't pitch for you until right now.
Oh, okay.
But I'm gonna take a comment, I'll write it down on a note card, I'll put it on a teleprompter, and I'll be like, hey Cap, give us a funny voice.
Okay.
So if you want him to read your comment in a funny voice, I might screen them, I might not.
It's fine with me. You don't have to screen them at all.
Oh, that could be very dangerous. I'll probably do it a little bit. But all that stuff sincerely helps. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here and listening and telling your friends and doing the following thing. We're going to do more of these. We made it to 3. I should have had a champagne or something that you made it to 3 podcasts.
Made it to 3.
You broke a record. But until then, 4 will probably happen. Go prepare for the minor. NA needs more teams. You can probably form one right now and play in the qualifiers.
You could definitely be the 10th team in the NA qualifier. I promise you can make it. 4K shitter doesn't matter. You can do it.
Are you going to play in it?
You'll be.
Are you gonna play
no, probably not. I think Veggies is. I'm not sure if Veggies will ever come back at this point. We almost made a Veggie stack for Midas mode.
You
want to know what it was going to be? It was going to be Arteezy, Matumba Man, Zai, Blitz, Cap. It was going to be the most overpowered Veggies roster in the history of Veggies rosters. But
and then they changed the dates so people.
No, then I don't know.
Did you get booted for
I'm
for
the
like
only one.
TI1 Navi. That's like, ugh.
No. If anything, Slack said he would boot another team for us because he said our roster was hype. I won't say who he was willing to boot.
Oh, I bet I can
But
guess.
if this roster had actually worked, then
It was definitely Alliance.